Accelerate Property Fund listed today on the main board of the JSE in the real estate holdings and development sector. Joining us to explain more about the listing is its non-executive chairman, Tito Mboweni. Well, we know that you're very used to being on television, Tito. I was saying to Gugu when we came on air, going back to 1992, my, how things have changed, when the two of us were playing around in Davos in the snow.
Yeah, it's quite a while ago, isn't it? It just shows how old we are. But I think those were very interesting days for South Africa. We were beginning to put South Africa back onto the global map, remembering that South Africa had been in isolation for many years. And those days we were beginning to plant the seeds of South Africa's return to the global economy. And a lot of hard work those days. And that, I'm happy to say, has paid off quite well.
You say you planted the seeds there. Just to interject, Alec, do you think we've done a good job so far, looking back?
I think we've done very well indeed. Remember, we were a bunch of ex-freedom fighters, some of us fresh from the bush and so on. We had never run a country. We had never run a company, actually. We knew how to explode bombs and how to shoot. And from those days, remember, even when President Mandela came out of prison, he said that nationalization was the policy of the ANC, and a change in this regard was not possible. Those conversations at Davos and other places also played a role in influencing his own thinking. I recall him meeting the Prime Minister of China and of Vietnam. And in the conversation, it was all about nationalization and things like that. And the Prime Minister of Vietnam said, look here, Mr. President, the ANC and ourselves are very close. And we've been close for many years. We are a Communist Party government. You are a National Liberation Movement. We are talking privatization. And you are talking nationalization? Doesn't make sense. The world has changed. And to his credit, Madiba changed with the times. And we began to plant these seeds.
It's a wonderful
which
story.
Today have, I think, germinated. We have stabilized the macroeconomy. We have brought inflation down. We have brought under control the budget deficit before borrowing. We have reduced the debt levels. Remember, the service charges on the debt used to be the first item on the budget. Now it's no longer the case.
We've got to talk about your business,
so
though, Tito.
I think, yeah, but let's talk a little bit about this, because I think business thrives within the context of a well-managed macroeconomy. And I think that we've done well over the years. There are some bumps here and there. And I said to people in the ANC, for example, I'll talk on the economy. You talk about these other difficult things, which I don't talk about, but they must talk about
So
them.
you don't complain about potholes?
It's a lovely story, and I'm so glad you repeated it here, about Madiba's being influenced by Vietnam. Because
amongst
quite often,
us, yes.
the thought is the people from the West changed his mind.
Nah.
But let's talk about Accelerate. This is your.
By the way, yes, we've come to talk about that. I must remember which hat I'm wearing.
But it's good to see you in the business community, and particularly with a very interesting company with SAC Oil, which I'm sure we'll have another chance to talk about. Of course, Anglo Gold Ashanti we all know about, but today's new listing, Accelerate. How did they bring you into this property business?
Purely by accident. There was this old crazy Greek man who owned a large portfolio of buildings and shopping centers all over the place. And he came to me and said, look, I'm old. I'm used to having a book in front of me and a telephone, and I scratch around who has paid the rent and who hasn't. And he said, this portfolio has grown so much that I can't manage it anymore. I need younger people who understand something about business to come and run this thing. Can you help me establish a corporate, an identity, a board of directors, with all things that go with corporate governance, a board charter and all of that. Appoint an executive management that must run the company and prepare it for listing. And we began talking about that, and we came to the conclusion that the listed company would be called Accelerate Property Fund. He had far too many properties, and so we could not bring all those properties into the Accelerate Property Fund. But we chose the good ones, the Fourways Mall precinct, which is wonderful. Some properties in Cape Town and Durban. But we are eyeing one for the future, which will be the largest shopping and entertainment area in the middle of South Africa, Bloemfontein. And that will be the additional cherry on top. And
is it built already, this one in Bloem?
It's, I can't talk more about it, but that's what we are aiming to also bring into our portfolio.
Why there in particular? Usually people move to the Western Cape or the KZN or even Gauteng. Why Bloem?
Well, Bloemfontein is in the center of South Africa. The people there also need services. And we are also keen to demonstrate that development just doesn't take place in Johannesburg and Cape Town, that even Bloemfontein things can happen there. And so we brought together these properties. I brought together a very good team that does the operational management. We've had to do all kinds of things, sort out bankers, have lawyers
raise
on board.
2 billion.
Raise 2 billion. In fact, there's one fund which I think invested about 950 million, so which is a sign of confidence. But I said to Old Man Jojo, I said, you have been running this thing as a family business. Now you're asking me to be the chairman of the board. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? It took about 8 months of conversation for him to understand that actually he ceded control of the company to me. I'm very pleased about it. But it took a lot of conversation, and I fully understand. We now have a broad base of investors, and the board of directors is responsible for the governance, for the strategy, for supervision of the executive management, and to make sure that we continue to create very good shareholder value.
And Fourways is you're kind of the landlord of Fourways, aren't you? The Fourways Mall and the Fourways Game, and I see a lot of businesses with the name or properties with the name of Fourways in your portfolio.
Yeah, well, it's the Fourways Mall. It's you see, you've got the Fourways Mall, and you've got something called the Fourways Precinct, but it's in that whole area there, and we think that we're going to develop something better than Sandton City there. Large shopping complex, offices, and we'll combine that with Cedar Square and where the BMW center is, and create a large property there. And we are hoping to create what I call the mini Manhattan of Johannesburg.
I've got to ask you, just as a final question, talking about Manhattans. I don't know if you followed the AECI story with the Chinese investors who were going to talk about creating Manhattan in Modderfontein.
Yeah.
Now that you're a property man.
Well, the more Manhattans we have, the better. I think it's a wonderful development. I know many people have criticized the decision to sell that property to the Chinese, but if you say you want foreign direct investment, can be choosy. Are you only going to prefer American investment as against Chinese investment? No. You want foreign direct investment, you must accept that from wherever it comes. And I think the fact that South Africa is part of the BRICS community of nations makes sense. South African companies are going to invest in China, they're going to invest in Brazil, so will Brazilian companies invest in South Africa and so on. So we have to be serious about that community of nations. It must become an economic community as well. So I'm pleased. I have no problem.
Let's hope the money comes in. I think that's where the criticism is. It's a tiny little company that's
I think lots of money will come in.
Let's hope so.
Look beyond the squatter camp.
Indeed.